Welcome to the Dope Sheet. I'm Wayne Demers, and this is just one guy's opinion. Today, we're going to be reviewing the movie Malignant. You can see it in theaters, or if you have HBOMax, it's also streaming there. It's rated R. It's a horror film, and it runs for 1 hour, 51 minutes. It's directed by James Wan. You may be familiar with his work. He did the film Saw, one of the Saw films, Insidious, The Conjuring, Fast and Furious 7. So it's a nice resume of work. Certainly does know how to direct. Not sure that I would put Malignant on his resume, though. Main character is Madison Mitchell, played by Annabelle Wallis. She was in a TV series on Netflix called Peaky Blinders. She was in the movie Annabelle and the movie The Mummy. Not a bad actress. Certainly one of the better ones in this film. Her sister, Sydney Lake, played by Maddie Hassan, she is a B-level actress. She overreacts a lot in the film. She goes overboard every time her sister is on the screen, from big eyes, or always have to be touching her hair or caressing her arms to give her comfort. It's just very annoying and very distracting. There's also a Detective Shaw. He kind of looks like and reminds me of David Duchovny, kind of wannabe from the X-Files, as Mulder. He plays it straight, and then he's really corny, and then it's like, I don't know, whatever. And then we have Detective Moss, played by Nicole Brianna. She looks like Wanda Sykes. She has a delivery like Wanda Sykes. So all I can think of is they wanted Wanda Sykes and they couldn't get her, so they've got this actress to fill in her shoes. The two detectives play off of one another. There's kind of a chemistry between them, but not really. And, well, the movie's kind of so bad that it really doesn't even matter, to be honest with you. We'll go into details here. It's a spoiler review, just because I can't recommend spending any money on going to see this film in the theater. So if you're in the horror genre, you enjoy those films, you may enjoy this one. You may even feel that it has an 80s vibe to it, a B-level movie type of feel to the whole thing, from the music to the style of acting to the villain. It just kind of has that 80s vibe to it. So anyway, let's dive into it a little bit more. Let's start off with the digital effects, which are poor. At times they look like they're cutscenes right out of a video game. I'm not kidding you. I've seen video games that, the story you go into a story in a video game, so they have what they call a cutscene, and like one of them that comes to mind, if you go way back, if you're kind of old school and remember Command and Conquer, it kind of had that vibe to it, maybe a little cleaner. But right off the bat, I just kind of felt like, geez, the story is so weak. The video effects are so fake, which is fine if you can kind of mask that they're digital effects. But if at times you kind of feel like you're traveling through Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I may be exaggerating there, but if you remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and you remember when he would see the castle, I just kind of felt like, you're pulling me out of it because the effects are bad. The acting right off the bat was so poor that I was like, geez, this could have been maybe a video game that somebody decided to pass on. They said, you know what? Why don't we take these video game elements, we'll build a story on it, and we'll use that as filler material, and it'll be cheaper to make. I mean, really, this has to be a very, very low budget film. I mean, there are even scenes that look like they're out of a TV show. We'll get into it. Anyway, I just kind of felt like the digital effects that were used were not on the same quality as the film, which isn't on a high quality either, in my opinion. So you're never pulled into the story. Part of the intrigue of the villain is that he doesn't speak physically, but he can speak through electric media such as cell phones or televisions or radios, etc. So the question is, this villain, is he an alien? Is he got special powers? It just kind of reads wrong with me right off the get go. I'm like, I don't really understand how this whole thing really plays out, or what you're trying to set me up for, other than he doesn't physically talk, but he's able to communicate. The editing, I feel, is kind of poor as well. You'll go from one cut scene into a transition scene that isn't of the same quality. For instance, one cut has you flying over a neighborhood. What might look like maybe a Northern California type neighborhood. And then you come to the main home where the story really happens. And the home is got a very Victorian style, but the homes we just flew over were very California-esque. You don't see it. Now, I think to the average viewer, you probably aren't looking at that, but it was just something I happened to notice because my question right off the beginning was, where is this filmed? I mean, where's this story taking place? So I thought, this is kind of odd. Victorian home in the setting of traditional California homes. So, that didn't really feel right. That probably wasn't the best transition scene to go through. And then later we find out that the story takes place in Seattle. And so that odd transition really popped to me. You have close-ups of police cars as they're coming into a scene, and there's fog, and there's headlights on, and there's flashing lights, and it kind of feels like a commercial, or maybe a TV series, especially the way that they set up the cars to have that strategic look that's really cool, with the lights and stuff. And I'm just like, so very, very set up, so intentionally, like I want to have a very cool appearance. So wasn't really big on any of that. The lighting cues, so there's a lot of flashing of lights and stuff and fog effects, and I felt like they were very subpar. You want to have a flickering light? Have a flickering light. Let's not have a light that looks like somebody standing off to the side and just flicking the switch on and off. Have a flickering light. And so that I thought was a little bit odd. Fog was overused at times. Halloween is coming up, and I'm one of those that loves to decorate, and I have a fog machine or two. And, when I wanted to have my fog lay on the ground, I had to figure out how to make that work, because a fog machine is just traditionally going to produce fog, and it will rise, and it will cling to like a house or a tree. And at one point in the movie, I just was like, why is there so much fog? Like, if this doesn't really, is this the movie The Fog? I mean, does this villain have some kind of power on fog? And it just, again, kind of took me out. Like, you're trying to set up a scene where the home is very foggy. It's a little scary atmosphere. And I felt like it failed because it was just poorly executed. Let's see. One scene with fog was in a subterranean level below the city. And I felt like, where is all this? I mean, there's a lot of antiques and stuff like that along the way. Nobody knows about this. How did we get it? It just didn't really make too much sense. It is set up in a previous scene where people are taking a tour, but I mean, we're way beyond just a little tour here. And then he gets into this main room, and there's fog that's laying down on the ground. It's about 3 feet high, just probably below your kneecaps. And I'm like, how do we have fog down here? No, yeah, okay, Wayne, you're probably just not putting the suspense of this movie. You're not buying into it. I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into it because you got two stagecoaches. One that comes flying across the set toward one of our heroes, and it misses him. And then he's the detective, right? So he gets up and he looks inside with his flashlight, and then he opens the door and he's looking around inside the stagecoach. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a stagecoach, which is pulled by horses. So there would be no driver in the stagecoach. The driver would be on top of the stagecoach. But again, we have no horses, so clearly this had to have been pushed. So again, that whole scene, just when you have a lot of things that just don't add up, and you have characters reacting to it in such a way of, oh, what's going on? How did that happen? And then you react by checking the inside of a stagecoach that you just looked in. Anyway, just kind of pulls you out of it, So, wasn't happy with the lighting, wasn't happy with the fog effects, and those are pretty much, I think easy effects to pull off. There's also a love interest, not quite a triangle, but there's between a detective and the CSI person is interested in the detective. So are these awkward lines, and they're intentionally meant to be awkward, but they're dumb, and they never amount to anything in the movie. So these are scenes that you didn't need. You didn't even need. The only thing that person ever does is set up, there's a crime scene. Well, we know that because the detectives are responding, So, got to continue watching this movie because, hey, I don't need you to go out and spend your hard-earned money to go and see a movie that you walk out of and say that wasn't worth the $15 I just paid to go and see it. So, you know what? I'll watch it and I'll let you know, save the money, wait till it streams. And if you have HBOMax and you want to watch it now, I say find something else. Watch a rerun. Watch Ghostbusters. Watch something like that. Because this movie is kind of bad on the level that at times is kind of funny when you start looking at how bad the acting is. So the film score, the soundtrack, many times it does not fit the scenery that's going on. And in fact, sometimes I have the vibe of an 80s film. So if James Wan was going for, hey, this is kind of an homage to the lousy horror films of the 80s, then he succeeded. If that was his point, he succeeded. But you don't get hits from the 80s. You're getting just tracks that sound like maybe they're from the 80s. But then you're going to get into an action sequence where the music is more, not quite techno, but along that vibe. And I'm like, okay, we got a cool chase scene. Oh, finally some action. That's pretty cool. There's an action scene where the villain is being chased by the detective, and the villain appears to be running forward. And then I'm not really sure, because then the villain kind of looks like he's running backward. Not really sure, but it intrigued me, and it does play out, and it does get explained in the end, but you notice it, and it was a decent scene. Again, I kind of felt like I'd seen it maybe in a video game rather. So, there aren't many too bright moments in this film. Again, unless you like horror films, in which you may like the idea that there's killing and that kind of a thing, but boy, it's weak. It really is kind of weak. So anyway, the score just really didn't sit well with me. Didn't really fit many of the scenes at times. So, and last but not least, I'll get into casting. We nearly get all B-level actors in here. There's a lot of overacting, overreacting, exaggerating of emotions. You name it, you'll see it. We end up in a jail cell, and I'm telling you, like, if you're a police officer and you work in a police station, I'd love to know if that's like the common gallery of people that you get. You get the punk, you get the foxy 70s disco queen, and you get just your stereotypical type characters in there. And hey, we're going to get a fight scene. Which brings me to probably the only bright part, and I will admit I am biased because I do like Zoe Bell as an actress, but she's far better known as a stunt person. But in this film, I don't feel like she really did any major stunts, nothing worthy of her talent anyway. So it was kind of cool. I'm like, oh, that's Zoe Bell. Pretty cool. I can't believe she got pulled into this really crappy movie. But hey, a paycheck is a paycheck, right? So anyway, this was just so bad. I would rather watch an 80s film or a bad 80s horror film. But again, maybe that's what James Wan was going for. Is it worth the price of admission? No, I think you're better off going to, I mean, you want to watch a good horror film? Probably one of the best. Go watch The Exorcist. That's a great film. I'm surprised. I've asked my friends, have you seen it? And so many people have not seen it. And I know that they're going to be remaking it. So I say watch the original. Spend your money on that. You're better off renting it on a streaming service than paying to go and see this movie. So again, I'll probably catch a little flack on comments from people who are horror geeks, movie geeks that just like to watch a bad movie once in a while. And that's fine, because if that's what you like, you will get it and get that with this film, and you'll come out satisfied. But otherwise, I just can't recommend this one. I don't feel like it comes in scary at any moment, and I just don't feel like this was even worthy of James Wan's time to have done this. So anyway, maybe you agree with me, and maybe you don't. And if you don't, it's okay. I'm just one guy, and this is just one guy's opinion. Go ahead and leave some comments below. Let me know how you feel about the movie. Until next time, I'll catch you at the movies.